Imagine flying a jet at mere feet above the freezing South Atlantic. Waves
You know that
blurring
somewhere
beneath your
out there,
wings, a Royal Navy destroyer is already tracking you. One mistake means death. Turning back means failure. This was the reality for Argentinian A-4 Skyhawk pilots during the Falklands War. They flew again and again into impossible missions, and their stories are told from inside the cockpit. These aren't just tales of courage under fire. They're accounts of split-second decisions that could mean life or death. The story begins with an unexpected twist. Argentina didn't have advanced radar systems or cutting-edge missiles. Their air force relied on speed, skill, and sheer audacity to strike British ships. But what made these Skyhawks so effective? Let me tell you about one mission in particular. One pilot who faced incredible odds, but refused to let them define his fate. His name was Captain Hector Bonzo, and he became a legend in Argentina overnight. Bonzo wasn't just any pilot. He had years of experience flying low over hostile waters. When war broke out, he volunteered for a daring reconnaissance mission. His target, a British destroyer off the coast of Port Stanley, armed only with bombs and guts. Bonzo took off in his Skyhawk. As he approached the enemy ship, the tension must have been unbearable. Suddenly, he spotted something terrifying. A missile launcher locked onto him. Most would have panicked, but not Bonzo. Instead, he did something extraordinary. He turned directly toward the threat. Why would anyone do this? Because Bonzo knew if he stayed too far away, his bomb wouldn't reach its mark. If he got closer, the missile couldn't lock on properly. It was a gamble, but it worked perfectly. With precision timing, Bonzo released his payload. The explosion rocked the British destroyer, sending shockwaves through the deck. Moments later, radio silence fell across the battlefield. For Bonzo, it wasn't luck. It was raw instinct honed by countless hours of training. That day, he proved why. Even the smallest aircraft can change the course of history. Now here's where things get interesting. While Bonzo's bravery inspired many, it also sparked questions among military strategists. How could such small planes be so effective against modern naval defenses? And how could pilots like Bonzo make seemingly reckless moves work without losing control? The answer lies in understanding the psychology behind high-stakes combat. Pilots like Bonzo weren't fearless. They were masters of calculated risk. They understood exactly when to push limits and when to pull back. In fact, studies show that pilots who face extreme situations regularly develop heightened mental resilience. So next time someone tells you size matters, remember Bonzo. Sometimes all it takes is one bold move to turn the tide of battle. What other surprising tactics have shaped aviation history? Share your thoughts below. And don't forget to follow for more untold stories. The A-4 Skyhawk was not designed for modern naval warfare. It had no advanced radar, limited electronic countermeasures, and often carried bombs that were older than the pilots themselves. Yet to survive against British forces, Argentine pilots adopted a terrifying tactic, flying ultra-low over the sea. They flew so close their wingtips nearly touched waves. This wasn't bravery, it was necessity. Flying low kept them hidden from British radar until the very last moment. But it also meant any mechanical failure, bird strike, or misjudged wave could end the mission and their lives instantly. As they approached the British fleet, the ocean suddenly exploded with fire. Tracer rounds asked upward, missiles streaked past. Ships filled the sky with anti-aircraft fire. Pilots later described the scene as flying into a wall of steel. At that speed and altitude, there was no room to dodge. The only option was to press forward. Some pilots released their bombs at distances so close they could see sailors running on deck. In several cases, bombs struck British ships but failed to explode. Faulty fuses not designed for such low-altitude delivery. Survivors still speak of the agony of knowing they had done everything right, and yet lost friends because of equipment limitations beyond their control. Many did not return. Entire squadrons were cut down in days. Each time a pilot took off, there was no guarantee he'd ever land again. And yet missions continued, not for glory, but for comrades, country, and duty. Years later, these Skyhawk aces speak not with triumph, but with reflection. They remember fear. They remember the silence after roll call when names were missing. They remember the sea, the same sea they skimmed at impossible speeds, becoming a grave for friends. And still, they remember something else. Pride. Pride in having faced overwhelming odds. Pride in having challenged one of the world's strongest navies. With skill, discipline, and raw courage. Pride in having done their job when history demanded it. The Falklands War is often told through maps and strategy rooms. But from the pilot's perspective, it was something far more human. A heartbeat pounding inside a cockpit. A hand tightening on the control stick. A final decision to fly forward, when turning back would have been easier. These are the untold stories of the Argentinian A-4 Skyhawk aces, men who flew at the edge of the ocean, and the edge of survival, and changed history from just a few feet above the water.